Thank you. So sometimes, in the best laid plans of mice and men, we have to do things differently, and today was one of those days. We apologize for the delay. It was not our intentions. Out of respect to our speakers, we are asking the board to change the agenda, move our speakers to the top of the list. May I have a motion to do so? Second, first by Terry, second by Jennifer. All in favor? Is there anyone who opposes? Thank you. Without further ado, I will call our first speaker, Mary Kiplin, teacher, new classes for children with autism. Thank you for coming tonight.
Good evening, Dr. Williams and board members. I'm here today to discuss the change in setting to our classes of students with autism from a class of six students, 1 teacher and 1 aide, to classes of 8 students, 1 teacher and 1 aide, and how it affects their safety. This change was made without consulting a single person who works with these students on a daily basis. No one requested any data from the teachers to justify the change. The people who made these decisions have never even observed the students in the classroom, yet they've decided that adding 2 more students would be beneficial. I am one of the teachers that will receive one of these classes. I spent the summer reading IEPs and prepping for the new school year. The 6 students that I was getting left me with some serious safety concerns. 5 wear diapers and would need to be changed 3 times per day. That takes approximately 45 minutes per student per day. This means I would be out without an aide for 3 hours and 45 minutes per day, not counting her hour-and-a-half break. Adding 2 more students could add an additional hour-and-a-half. That doesn't include the student that needs to be on a potty training schedule. This means placing a student on the potty every hour until we get them potty trained. The aide or myself would be busy for 10 to 15 minutes per hour while potty training a student. This could be an additional hour-and-a-half with an adult missing from the class. All students will need assistance with eating breakfast and lunch. Some will need one-to-one assistance and one is awaiting feeding clinic. This student is still being bottle fed and has very specific diet and requires supervision during feeding. 4 of the students have aggressive behaviors which will not be supervised properly with limited adults in the room, again causing a safety concern. 6 of the students are classified as nonverbal, which leads to frustration and additional safety concerns for each child. 3 children require one-to-one supervision, yet do not have a one-to-one aide. The supervision is necessary for each student's safety in the classroom. Added to these needs of constant supervision, you now must take into consideration how instruction can be delivered without enough adults in the room to supervise each child, while I'm either implementing whole group, small group, or direct one-to-one instruction for the class. Please help me and my colleagues explain to parents of these students how this is what is best for children. Can anyone share why this decision was made? Can anyone tell me what additional support will be available to my colleagues and myself? What additional equipment and programs geared towards nonverbal students will be available? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The superintendent will address you once the other speaker has spoken. Thank you. Well, our next speaker needs no introduction. Mr. Espadell, happy belated birthday to you.
Thank you. Before I get started, I wanted to give a shout out to Kelly Daniels. Today, she spent an hour supporting a family with a difficult situation, and the family and me want to thank her for the time she spent with us. So thank you. And I want to apologize to the Code of Conduct, people at the Code of Conduct meeting for last week. Some board members attended stuff. You know, my frustration carried out a little overboard, I think. So I just wanted to apologize so you guys understand. I do appreciate the work you do, and I was publicly a nuisance, so I'm going to publicly apologize. All right. Thank you. So why parents are frustrated. So I'm going to start with the call I got today. Today I got a call from a parent from school 72. They were notified that their autism class for first grade no longer exists at 72, and they must pick an alternative location. My problem and their problem is short notice. They bought the school supplies. It doesn't have a human connection to the family. I did talk to Ann about it, and she explained the process. I still struggle with it a little. That's why parents are frustrated. 8 parents at school 156 in the autism program are being asked to transfer to City Honors, and the parents aren't happy about it. City Honors no longer has a NYSIC class. The district has secretly taken the NYSIC students from City Honors over the last 4 years. That's why parents are frustrated. I go to an IEP meeting with someone's son. The child is 3 years behind in reading, and the district doesn't send the child to summer school. That's why parents are frustrated. I had a story of a child with autism was at the placement building, and the staff didn't handle the child very well. The child was not very quiet, and the staff had lack of training to work with that family, and I will say that's why parents are frustrated. We thought we were getting a commissary, and now we're unsure. That's why parents are frustrated. The public meeting, I apologize for. I couldn't read the board. I couldn't hear anybody. I didn't think it was a good place to have the meeting. And giving a 6-day notice for a public meeting is not fair to parents. I'm going to leave it at that. I wanted to just express that parents are a very important part of the solution, and we want not only to be heard, but you to understand that it's not us against you. Hear our pain when we're talking to you, and understand that we're trying to make a difference for more than just our own kid. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spadell. Superintendent?
Okay. Ms. Kiblin, first I'd like to thank you for your patience tonight in waiting to speak and to be heard. And I can hear from your passionate plea that you care very deeply about the children that you service, and you were able to share very specific needs for the children. And so I want to say thank you on behalf of all of us for what you do every day. We realize it's not easy being a teacher, and especially when you're teaching children that have very, very specific and special needs. So I'm going to ask Ms. Botticelli to reach out to you so that she's able to hear specifically what some of the supports are that you need in order to make sure that your children receive the best service possible. Okay? President Spidell, thank you first for coming up and giving kudos to Ms. Daniels and her team over at Placement. You and I spoke earlier, and you shared with me, wow, that's a really hard job. And it is. It's very difficult, over at Placement, because they're not always able to give parents what they want because of spacing issues and, program issues, and sometimes that's hard for parents to hear that. And I think you were able today to kind of witness it firsthand and help to navigate and support Placement and the parent. And so thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for sharing publicly that you went to a meeting and it was difficult. It was difficult, the location that it was in, to hear and all of that. I really appreciate, none of us are perfect. And so I appreciate, when we've done something that, you know, we wish we had done differently to be able to stand up and to say, you know, I apologize for that. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. I hope you feel a shift since I've been in this leadership role with the work with parents. It is not perfect. It's not perfect, but I feel it is getting better. And, you know, I believe that certainly parents, I hope, feel that, you know, they have a whole team of folks that will listen, It's a process, though, and it can't overnight just change, and we're not always able to give, you know, everything and to get the longer term notices out. Sometimes we're able to, sometimes we're not. And so for this, I believe the meeting that you're speaking of, the shorter notice, you know, that came about because you and I had a very brief conversation in a parking lot after we had our circle meeting. And so you were heard, and we were able to respond quickly. We were able to turn it around quickly and to do the in-person meeting because that was something that you felt would benefit parents. So we're going to keep working at it. You know, it's a process. Know that we appreciate all of our parents, and we certainly appreciate the work that you do to advocate for parents. Sometimes we can deliver and we agree, and sometimes we don't. But the appreciation is always there, always there. So thank you.
Thank you. I need to do a point of order at this time. Prior to the board meeting starting, the board went into executive session to receive legal advice, and no action was taken. Thank you. Dr. Williams, do you have a superintendent's update today?
I do, and it'll be brief. Just 2 items. I'd like to ask Admir if he would queue up. There's a video that I'd like to share. It's just about 5 minutes, so it's not very long. But I received something this week from our Chief of Instructional Technology, Juliana Shalino, and it showed some of our children that are students at the OTC school site. Principal Fidali is the principal there, and I thought it spoke so clearly to one of our goals in our strategic plan, which is about, you know, closing opportunity gaps. And so I want you to see the work that the children were involved in this summer from the OTC Center, and they will share why this work was important to them. So Admir, if you can share that.
This summer, the Student Technology Leadership Program teamed up with the students from the OTC. These student interns helped to prepare devices for the upcoming school year. They recycled the old equipment and organized charging cords.
Hello, my name is Cam, and I've been a student technology leader for 2 years.
Hi, my name is Daniel, and I've been STL for 1 year.
Hi, my name is Cash. I have been a student technology for a year.
Hello, my name is CJ, and I've been a technology leader for 2 years.
Hi, my name is Johnny. I have been a student technology leader for 1 year.
They have improved on skills such as taking hotspots apart, cleaning laptops. We have 2 young men that are scanning the laptops for inventory, and they find themselves, they're very proud of what they're doing here. Hi, my name is Danielle Steele, and I'm a vocational trainer at the Occupational Training Center.
Hello, my name is Ms. McCann, and I'm an assistant in the class with the students.
Absolute favorite highlight of the program so far was watching the students earn their first paycheck and sign for it. The smiles on all of their faces and knowing what they achieved and just listening to the things that they were going to do with that money that they earned themselves.
My tasks for this summer are taking the hotspots apart, putting them into boxes to recycle them, and then cleaning computers with alcohol and then scanning them.
This summer, I've been cleaning computers and taking care of hotspots.
We did over 1,000 hotspots in 1 week.
Cleaning the computers is important because they need those for the next school year in September.
Being a student technology leader makes me feel happy and independent.
My favorite part of the program is cleaning the computers.
I like using the alcohol spray to spray the laptops, and I really want to get a paycheck.
My friend should be technology leaderships because they're super helpful. I need new people, get money, get paid.
My friends should be student technology leaders because they are very helpful and they also can get a paycheck.
During the second week of the program, the student interns received their very first paycheck. Getting their checks was a very exciting moment for each intern. They couldn't wait to spend their hard-earned money on something that they have been saving for. Cam decided to buy a new phone. Dalian saved his check. Cash took his girlfriend to the movies and paid for the whole thing. CJ bought a Nintendo 3DS and a game to go along with it. And Johnny saved his check.
I think one of the biggest benefits to this program is the kindness and the accepting of our students by the other summer interns and the other staff in the building.
Hi, my name is Maggie Schmarter, and I have been a student technology leader for 2 years. This year I've had the amazing opportunity to work with the interns from OTC. This group of kids work amazingly together, and they just pick up on everything so fast. I worked with a couple of them last year, and I was just so excited to do it again. We have taken apart hotspots, cleaned laptops, and a couple of them have started scanning laptops for inventory. They just pick up on these skills so fast, and they just do it so well, and I'm so proud of them.
Thank you, Admir. So as we're moving into talking more and more about outcomes, student outcomes, some will be academic and some will be skills that I think for the rest of students' lives that are transferable, that they're learning in school but will be transferable into jobs. Skills like communication, attention to detail, professionalism, independence, teamwork, and time management. I'd like to ask Juliana Shalino if you have anything you'd like to share, how many students participated and a little bit, more about what they did, just a few minutes.
I'll be very brief. I was so proud. I walked in, I saw the beginning of the session. It was a 4-week program with all of our SCLPs. There's 30 students in the program, and they all do a variety of things. If you ever come over to Building 28, you will see beautiful murals that have been made. The art teacher, right from this particular building, works with the students to design parts of the mural and then the painting of the murals in the rooms. We have one from last year and we have 2 from this year. We also have the cleaning is going on, the scanning is going on. The students are stacking devices into different categories for deliveries to the buildings for the fall. all of that work is being done by our vendor partner and our students under the direction of Director Alicia Thompson and the supervisor, Brianna Pride, and her crew. And I think everyone in the room teared up a little when that video was done because the students really were exceptional with the work they did. If you walk through the summer, every one of those 30 students is working so hard that I was like, oh, I should be helping. They were working so hard, and I'm so grateful to be in a district that is the priority and the mission and the vision of this department, and it's supported so well, and the outcomes are amazing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for your work. Thank you. For the next part of my report, I'm going to ask Dr. Sharon Brown to come forward, and I can see that she has with her Ms. Daniels, who works within her Division of Student Support Services. And, you know, we have a strategic plan. We have a strategic plan that we are all following, and what that plan is really entrenched in is equity. Equity for all in all that we do. And about, you know, our goal number one, again, is about creating opportunities. And so when we know better, we do better. And Dr. Brown and Ms. Daniels brought an issue to my attention regarding inequity that they discovered regarding how sibling preferences have been processed. And so they want to share with the board an update on what we plan to do to address it, and know that everything that, you know, will be shared tonight, it's all based in data. They've looked at the data over the last few years, and it's about creating equitable opportunities for all of our children, regardless of what school you go to. So I'll turn things over to Dr. Brown.
Thank you so much, and good evening, Dr. Williams and honorable board members. And as Dr. Williams said, we are really focusing on making sure that all of our students have equity and they have whatever services that they receive that is aligned across the district. So again, I'm joined here with Kelly Daniels, the Director of Student Placement and Registration, and she and her very small team, they do an amazing job with placing thousands of students. And so really thank Mr. Spidell for recognizing that. And certainly they have the support of Assistant Superintendent Tina Jones. So again, this evening, just briefly with an update, we want to share with you our sibling preference district-wide and how one school in particular, School 64, is different currently. And as we see the slide here, and the students that we see here, they represent the students in our district. And we see the smiling faces. We know that our parents, that is one of the most important decisions that they have to make when they engage with our application process, our school choice process. And so they're waiting those letters, and when they get that letter, they're excited that their child is accepted to a school of their choice. But they also want the other sibling to attend the same school. So I'm going to just give you a little background with the sibling preference. Next slide, please, Admir. So just to give you, again, just a little bit of background about the sibling preference is granted to students in grades pre-K to 8 based on seat availability. So the sibling preference, it doesn't apply to criteria-based programs, and the sibling must be a brother or sister of the applicant, and they must reside in the same household. The sibling must be currently registered in Buffalo Public Schools in grades 3Y to 8, and the preference is only given to students who will attend the same school for the 23-24 school year. And the sibling preference must be requested on the application, so you'll see that right there on the application. Next slide, please. So this is just some data for you. So the first area is number of citywide siblings assigned to School 64. So we provided you trend data. So 21 to 22, as you see, pre-K through fourth grade, we have primarily have students who more than likely do not get accepted for citywide for pre-K to 3. So here you have 0 was placed for pre-K, 21, 22, 1 student, 23, 24, currently none. And then in the next area, you see how many are in the waiting pool. So let's just move right to 23, 24. Pre-K, there are 10 students. So we know that is definitely the prime grade where a lot of our families, they really want their students to attend that school with their sibling. And then you can see the other grade levels, and I'll give you a moment to look at that. But we are seeing a trend. We are seeing a number of students, and this is for School 64. We are seeing an increase. And we know 64 is a great school as well as all of our other schools. Next slide, please. And you also have the information in your folders. So this is the attendance boundary, just to give you a little background with this. So students in pre-K through 8, they may be granted attendance boundary preference based on seat availability. So what you see highlighted in red is what we're focusing on right now. So School 64, 65% of the available seats are assigned to the gifted and talented program. And then the 35% is divided as follows for lottery. Neighborhood siblings are first. Then Kelly and her team will have to go to neighborhood, then citywide siblings, and then citywide. So that is how it is currently, and this is how it has been for several years. Next slide, please. So what we are proposing for this coming school year is to combine the neighborhood and citywide into the same lottery to ensure School 64 is consistent with all of our elementary schools across the district. So therefore, we are proposing 35% of the available seats are assigned as follows. Neighborhood and citywide will go first, instead of citywide siblings being the third, which you rarely ever get to citywide. And then next will be neighborhood and citywide. And so we are confident that making this slight change, which will be a huge impact for our families, because our students, they're, especially when you're entering school and particularly in those formative years, they're very excited to go to school as a family. And also, it's a benefit for the school culture. I mean, as a former principal, I loved when I saw families just continuously returning. You begin to gain and to build more and more relationships. So we're going to pause now and open it up for questions and feedback.
Are there any questions at the table? Mr. Scott?
Thank you, President Bellingham. So my question has to do with, if you have a student that is at 64 that entered there through the GT process, would a sibling that citywide and neighborhood then apply to the sibling preference?
If it's indicated on the application, but I'm going to ask Ms. Daniels to come up if she wants to add to that.
So they would apply for either a citywide or neighborhood seat on the application, and then we would run the lottery.
So they would not have to pursue the GT testing criteria?
That could be an option too. So 64 has 3 options, well 4. Neighborhood / citywide, 3. The dual language program or the gifted and talented. So in a sense, they can apply to all 3 programs.
Okay, so a sibling of a student that is enrolled in the GT program could just apply based on, as a sibling,
Yes.
not actually participate in the GT process?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question or two. Please help me understand how this model allows other children from outside of this immediate area to have access to this building.
So with the model that we are proposing, it provides an opportunity for both neighborhood and citywide to be included in one lottery. And again, because we know that neighborhoods, in terms of where parents choose to live, we never know exactly where they're going to land. But again, we want to make sure, we don't really have a reason to determine that School 64 should look different than any of our other schools, because they're all great schools, and we want to give parents that opportunity. We have heard throughout the entire year, and I'm sure prior to being in the position that I'm in now, we've heard loud and clear that it has put a strain on many families, and they would like to see this be the same and aligned to all of the other elementary schools.
Okay, so I'm a little confused. So you have the Frederick Law Olmsted Elementary, 64, Discovery School, 67, and Highgate Heights. Okay, I would like to see the demographics on these buildings. I would like to see what it looks like, what percentage of diversity exists in these buildings. What I'm a little confused with, though, is that at the Discovery School, you have a 50-50 model. But here you're proposing 65-35. Why not 50-50?
Because 65% of the students are entered into the gifted and talented program, so that's the model for the school.
So the school is a gifted and talented school first and foremost?
I would just say 65% of the students are slated for the gifted and talented program.
Okay, because the school I don't see on here, which maybe it's on another page, is a school 50.
So School 50 is a community school. So we have boundary schools, 64, 80, 67. And then we have community schools in the partnership with Say Yes. So that's a different model.
So boundary school is different than a community school.
So boundary schools are determined by streets.
Okay. How many, what ratio, what radius?
So it's the old school boundary list. So for 67, well, let's go back. 64 are the old boundaries where you went to school based on your address. So that was established years ago. 67, when they opened 67 as Discovery, they used certain schools, 27 and school 12, so students who lived in those zones as neighborhood students. And then 80 was enacted by Promise Neighborhood with M&T. So those schools came from the Promise Neighborhood model.
Okay, so school 12 doesn't exist anymore, right?
Correct.
So was another school being used in lieu of that?
No, no.
No?
So
Okay.
they just used the boundary. So
The
when
boundary, so there's not many children around school 12.
correct. Well,
So what's being?
well, I don't know correct, I'm just saying.
Well, no, I know where it's located down there. Okay, the reason I'm asking that question is it seems like there needs to be a look at that. The percentage of children that exist in that zone are very few, my understanding is. How far out do you go? A mile and a half?
So again, boundaries, for boundary schools?
Right.
So boundary schools are established, they're streets, so it's not a mile, it's just the old boundary list. So if you lived in a certain neighborhood back, when I was growing up, you went to a certain school. So that's the list that we use. So it's just a list of streets that you lived on the street, and that's where the boundaries are. So it's not a mile radius, it's just a street. So there's certain zip codes, but there's not a.
So it's certain zip codes. I'm certainly learning a lot about this process. So when you provide the demographics for these schools, I would also like to see what's going on at School 50, because I have a guy who approached me and asked me to try to get some diversity in the school, so his little girl could have somebody that looked like her in the building. What cannot happen is that you have a neighborhood model that excludes children. That's what the Office of Civil Rights said, that we can do community schools, but we cannot do neighborhood schools. So what I don't understand is that we were cited for the Office of Civil Rights, and I'd like for us to take a deeper dive on that. I think it was in 2017, we were cited that that because the area, Buffalo was so segregated, that neighborhood schools we shouldn't do. And if I remember right, and I sort of remember this process, I'd like for us to take a deeper look at this, because you cannot have a situation where other children are not allowed to get into a building. That's against the law. So I like to see this, but I thank you for sharing this, because this has been something that's been on my mind, and I'd also like to see what's going on at School 50, because I'm being told that very few children outside of that zone are being allowed in that building, and I want to see what it looks like. Okay, so I don't know, can that be brought to one of our committees, or do you want to bring it back to the board next month? Yes, Mr. Hurd. Oh, Terry, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to speak since Discovery School is in my neighborhood, and the thing that upsets me is that the neighborhood I live in, my daughter lives less than like 4 blocks from Discovery, and we have no guarantee that my grandson will get into Discovery. So therefore, we are looking at private education. And the little school across the street from us has 3 filled state-funded pre-K through the Buffalo Public Schools. And my neighborhood is speaking loudly that they would like to have those spots, and if we don't have spots, we're losing a lot of good families as well. I see both sides, but I know that my neighborhood, we've advocated, it's a successful program, and if you live, my daughter lives on Abbott Road, the school is on Abbott Road, but it's really hard to plan your life when you don't know if you're going to get that letter from the Buffalo schools. And I just wanted people to know that that is what I'm hearing, not only from my own family, but from many of the young families in my community.
I have the floor.
Yes, Mr. Hurd.
Thank you. I would just like to say I'd like to thank Mrs. Brown and also Dr. Brown and also Mrs. Daniels for taking initiative to look into this matter and try to resolve a way that we can better suit our stakeholders, our children, and employees. My biggest concern is those individual households that may have 3 children that go to 3 different schools and that have different bus times and bus routes. And I wish that I'm speaking to the superintendent that we can address the way that we can try to accommodate those individuals with those hardships, because I receive a lot of phone calls and complaints from those families that, they're losing jobs, they can't get to work on time, buses not coming, the whole, onslaught of complaints that come in that realm. And I just wish that we can try to concentrate on those families first and then address the other families so that maybe we can find some normalcy and they can have some normalcy in their lives and using education system with the Buffalo Public Schools. And also, I wish that we address our questions to the superintendent because as board members, just heard a lot of things in the past about us talking to administrators, staff members about what our wants and needs are. And so I just have to ask if we can address our questions to the superintendent and if she feels that that's something she can bring together at that immediate time that we can move forward with it. Thank you.
So, Mr. Hurd, I'm a little confused. Are you talking about now or in the future? Because right now we have staff here that asked us if we can ask some questions. So I'm a little confused. Are you talking about now or in the future addressing questions?
All together. Thank you, President.
Okay. So thank you. Do you have anything to share? Because when we do open and question, everyone is allowed to ask a question during that period of time. Thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to address, Ms. Board Member Hurd, that we do address hardship cases because we definitely know that there are families where they have extreme conditions or circumstances. So Ms. Daniels and her team, they do work with the families as well as the principals from the current school to try to support them in getting to a school that's closer to their location.
Thank you for that, and thank you for your work. And we do, I can speak for myself that I do see a sleuth amount of calls, especially at the beginning of the school year, about those things. And when the weather become inclement, and when kids start missing school, it counts against them. And see what we can do to try to alleviate those problems. So thank you so much.
Okay. So I have a question about what are we doing now to make sure that we capture more students? Are we starting to advertise? My understanding is shortly after school starts that we go into an open enrollment period. Do we have a plan, any plans in place to make sure that we start recruiting ASAP to get as many students as we can in the Buffalo Public Schools? Marketing campaign, advertisement, and something like that.
No, absolutely. And we just had a meeting, I think it was earlier this week, with a team of principals, and we had the marketing individual from Dr. Williams' office who is prepared to market all of our schools. Our principals are on board with that. Also, what we're doing too within all of the schools is we're offering the test for all of our 4th, 6th, and 8th graders to, again, when you talk about Board Member Cotman about diversity and inclusion and all of that, those are some of the efforts that we're continuing to do to build more capacity and more opportunities for our students. But yes, we are having a huge campaign to promote our schools, to get our students back, and it's going to continue.
If I can just add to that, I think this last year we really have stepped up. Billboards are all across the city of Buffalo, advertising the good news about Buffalo Public Schools, things like, the radio show that we're involved in every single Saturday. We took a break this summer, but every Saturday we're on WUFO. The Wednesday with Williams, I didn't realize how many people see it, but students see it. Our social media accounts have increased, and we've redid our website over the summer. So we are actively doing things to try to engage folks who may be BPS families and those who are not, to let them know about some of the things we're doing. Now, in this year 2 of Action and Accountability, I think we start looking at some of the programs that we offer, and if we need to increase or change or modify some of the programs so that we're able to entice students in some of the things we are doing, then we'll be able to do that also.
Thank you. Yes, Board Member.
One of the problems I'm hearing from my constituents is they really don't know if they're first-time BPS people, whether that's pre-K or it's they move in during the summer. I don't know how we get the word out that you have to apply the year before. So if you're a new family with a pre-K-er, I've gotten calls, they're like, we called, but they said that we were late for our application and all the places are filled. And it's only like June. Like they don't like how do we get that word out that if your child is going into pre-K, you need to put this in your application or you're not going to have a spot, especially at the school in different neighborhoods that are high request. Because I've gotten a lot of calls from people and guess where they went? They went over to the little private school that's having state-funded pre-K.
I think this is an opportunity. We heard President Spidell earlier talk about how parents want to be involved. And I think this is an opportunity for the district to hear from parents. Where are some of the things? Because we think we're marketing, but maybe parents have other ways, that, there are ways for us to get information out to them that we haven't really thought about. And so, it could be an opportunity for us to create just a small group and hear from some parents how it is that they receive information.
Well, certainly that was very informative. And thank you so much. I also want to thank Kelly Daniels and her staff. They have been short, and they staffed a number of people, and they've been working late nights and weekends to try to meet the mark. And I know it's not easy being green, but that's a Kermit the Frog song. But I want to thank you all and note that the board recognizes that and we appreciate your efforts. It does not go unnoticed. Can we give them a round?
Thank you.
That concludes my reports.
Thank you. So moving forward, can someone, since this is on the agenda before I move forward, tell us where we are as far as our student representative update? Will we be having one at the next meeting or our September meeting, or will we be waiting? If you don't have that answer today, we can take it via text or email.
The last I checked, it looks like it'll be the October meeting selected.
Okay. Madam Superintendent, I had an idea for September's board meeting that we bring our students down that have done extraordinary things last year that did not possibly get acknowledged and do a big kickoff to show our children about, the excitement and the things that they're doing. Some of them, I don't know how we would reach them all, but I do know some of them received awards from extracurricular stuff, and just do it like a roll call or just invite our children in to be a part of our board meeting to do a kickoff. Maybe we could do something similar to a rally or something. What do you think, board members? You think that's a good idea?
However we discuss how we're going to go about it, I really feel like we can fill these seats with our students who we're essentially working for and with, so I'm down with that for sure.
Thank you. Moving forward, may I have a motion to approve the minutes from the July 19th, 2023 board meeting, Cindy, second by Larry. Thank you, board member Cindy McCutcheon and board member Scott. In regards to consent agenda, can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? I see two hands, three hands. Hand one, Jennifer McClusey, second hand, Kathy Brown. With that said, let's move forward. So our first question is from Mr. Hurd, proposed code of conduct revisions.
Yes, thank you again. I was just looking at the code of conduct and looking at the proposed changes that were seated here. And last year we had a committee that went over the code of conduct and helped, we spent the whole summer along with Dr. Brown and Betticelli staff and other staff members and talked about the code of conduct, and we also met with community members from across the city of Buffalo. I think we had over 10 meetings. And I'd like to just applaud them, and the board voted in the code of conduct, but they took upon, you know, some of the questions that happened throughout the year and see that it needed to make a couple of changes for within the code of conduct. And I just want to make sure that they have enough time allowed that we can view the changes as a board and take a look at them and see what the changes are and how we can move forward, just to make sure that we make better a better process, you know, for our children and for the parents to understand about suspensions, the reason for suspensions, and how long, and that we all are on one accord. I know that we have problems with, you know, they say that different principals in different buildings, you know, had, you know, acted different, but that's what this code of conduct is about, so that everybody could be judged on the same basis, and that it won't be any discrimination. But some of the things that I read in here, one thing is about telephones, where some buildings allow children to use telephones and some buildings don't, and how to spare that, you know. I just think that we need to just take a look at it as a board and as a committee once again, just to make sure that we're making the proper changes and all the changes that's needed. We know that this is an ongoing process with the code of conduct. There's always changes that's being made due to times and situations, but we can make sure that we get it right. So, thank you.
I just want to say, Madam Superintendent, that when this code of conduct was originally written, it included parent involvement in every step. And I think we're missing a piece. When a child first has their first incident, not at least reaching out to the home to let them know that this child had an incident today, okay? Rather than waiting until it escalates and then we end up at a level 2, a level 3, or a level 4. I really would appreciate if you would have a conversation about how we can put the parent and the engagement piece back into this, because as it stands right now, we need to work hard to get our parents engaged. And I did not see where at every level parent engagement. And we had this conversation during the meeting. It was very thoughtful. Staff talked about how do we implement it. You know, we can come up with the idea, but how do we make sure that across the district that your first incident, you know, that the parent is notified? Because oftentimes when I get involved, the parent is saying that they didn't know that this had happened, and now we're at the level escalated. The child is normally suspended, and the child has been acting out for a while. So that's the only thing, the suggestion that I had. I thought that staff did a very thoughtful review of this. There are some additional things that I think we will need to bring before the board in regards to our code of conduct. One of the things I'm concerned about is the and the parent piece associated with this. We have now that, and I'm going to go on record to say it, now that marijuana is legal, we have parents that are smoking marijuana in the car, bringing our children to school. And that's a concern when a child has to be educated that the child has been exposed to those toxins the first thing in the morning. And so there's a deeper dive that we're going to have to start doing. You, Dr. Brown, did share that in every building you're doing something different this year. Would you like to share that with the board as far as posting something?
Yes, thank you, Board President Kottman. So this year, we are providing posters to every school. The Department of Pupil Personnel, under the direction of Dr. Heath Frisch and Assistant Superintendent Ornice Hill, they've worked in conjunction with their teams, and also Kim Tran in our marketing department. She was able to bring those posters to life. And so I just looked at the final copy yesterday. It looks amazing. And what they did is they used the data from the suspensions, and they pulled out the top areas where we're seeing most infractions, because we know that our code of conduct is well developed. It's very long, the original, but the student version is a lot smaller, but we wanted to be able to extract that. So all schools from pre-K through 12th grade will receive these posters. And it's not just the posters, but also it is the work that we will continuously do. And some of the comments and the feedback that I've heard just now, very valid feedback, but it again speaks to the implementation and parent engagement and parent involvement. Certainly our principals, they really do try to focus on contacting parents, involving them in every step. But again, we, and when I say we, Student Support Services, we want to continuously provide this training at all levels. Again, we did it last year. We did all administrators, including central office, because the code of conduct, that is our foundation, is the blueprint of how we engage with each other. And we just want to continuously do that. And when you see the recommended updates, it's really to provide more transparency. Last year, we vetted this document, if you recall, and we had about 4 to 6 code of conduct meetings, really vetted it, and it's already approved through 2025. Thank you to the board for doing that. But again, we don't want to stop there. When it comes to our students, we don't want to pause and say, okay, we'll just wait. If there's anything in there that we feel could benefit a student even more, we want to be able to make those kind of changes. But the code of conduct posters, we're excited that they're coming.
Awesome. Yes, Mr. Hurd.
We have a couple of incidents it's throughout the country where we have vaping here in New York State, where children are vaping in school, outside before they come to school and after school, and how we control that. It's something new that we're dealing with, and I talked with a couple of state senators across the state about what can be written about legally addressing vaping, because we don't have any legislation actually written on it, what can be inside the materials in the vaping. And but kids are doing it. And then we have the edibles, that's something new in our district. And kids are giving them to other kids. They get them from home or from a friend, and they distribute them among the classmates, and they're getting sick from these edibles. Some of them are high potent. And I don't believe that we should, overall, this is my thought, about suspending children because they ate something or a piece of candy that they thought were candy or may knew was edible, but just took it as candy and not really knowing the effects that it have on them in their bodies. So these kids are going to the hospital or going home. And of course, this district took every precautions, I believe, necessary to keep the safety of those children. But I don't think suspension is always the key for those. I believe that we need to look at possibly, more intervention, and giving kids, more classes and education about not taking these things, what they do to the body and what they do to them. So I just don't think that suspension is always the key to everything. And I heard our community say that also. But with something like that, for nonviolent acts, I believe that we need to do some other type of intervention and education other than suspensions.
Absolutely. And what you're referencing is definitely in our code of conduct. Of course, because everything is moving quickly, you can't identify every single drug, but it's certainly covered. And when you look at the code of conduct, there are ranges. So it can be from a 2 all the way up to a 4. Again, most of the code of conduct is really about restorative and support and interventions. The suspension is certainly the last resort, but it doesn't end in just a suspension. It's a suspension. If it has to be a suspension, it's suspension and support. That is why we partner with Kids Escaping Drugs. I'm looking forward to meeting with them to get some additional data points. The principals have really been reaching out to them. They've done a lot of presentations and support and referrals, and we're going to continuously dig deeper. So again, what I keep hearing is that it's covered in the code of conduct. We just need to continuously provide the supports and the training and the consistent coaching to really make sure that we all understand, and our principals are understanding too, that that's not just the answer to suspend the child, but to get those supports.
Yes, board member.
So I just wanted to add that years ago, and just as a community member, I was part of writing the code of conduct with Dr. Rosser back then. And to see how it is a consistent, living document, how it grows and how we address it, how we have been, you can't address every single problem because we would be superheroes rocking capes. But I just want to, number one, commend that this district as a whole, no matter who takes a position, that this document is a living, breathing testament to how we deal with situations in our district, how we compare, we do due diligence around how we compare to other districts across the nation. And this has been very near and dear to my heart. And I want to echo President Kottman's request to have, the parent and family or caregiver engagement piece more prevalent throughout. And I also would like to request something that is kind of, repetitive for me at this point, is that we look into kind of PARs, right? How we address situations. We have this standard where our SBMT teams and our principals, there is a lot of autonomy, and rightfully so, in their buildings, but certain things that the code of conduct addresses, I'd like to see implemented across the board. And then the climate of the school be addressed after that point. So, is it the code, do we have our students who realize that not only are they the target, and that's what it seemed like during the presentation, is that this is what happens if a student does this, this, or this, but I also like to see what's implemented in that code of conduct, the rights of the student to be able to have a conference if it's an adult who might have, who might be their trigger. That doesn't seem as prevalent as this is what happens if you're a child dealing with this, this, and this. So those are my only requests, that maybe we can highlight this is for everyone, all of our, not just, what happens with our students, but also how we can address situations, whether it's student to, and I've seen it once, but I didn't see it as much as I saw, if a child does this, this, and this is what happens. I'd like for it to be repeated more, that a student or, peer-to-peer, teacher-to-teacher, or a teacher with a problem with administration has that same language of being comfortable and confident that they can address their issues within the code of conduct.
Thank you for that feedback. I know the larger document that's much longer, it has all of what you're describing, but to your point, we want to continuously reiterate that, because again, to focus on the restorative pieces and everything that you described, it's all in the beginning portions of the code of conduct, but thank you.
Okay. So I just want to say, this is maybe a little bit off topic, but I don't think it is. I received a call from a community concerned parent who said that she's noticing that the vape stores are being set up around our schools, and that there are laws or whatever that's supposed to not be within so many feet. And she brought it to my attention last Thursday that we have this problem around our schools, downtown, Emerson, Hutch Tech, or whatever. And so I reached out to Board Member McKetchin, who has strong ties with the Common Council, to start having that conversation, because granted, we can't control, what the city does, but if that's a problem, then we certainly want to make sure that they're not using, setting our kids up. And it appears to be, from what the lady gave me, it appears to be an issue, particularly on the west side. And then since then, I started riding around looking, and I am starting to see that they're near our schools. So that's something that we're going to have to start working on to make sure that we protect our children, or we're going to have another evergreen sitting up in Swanity next to us, like we do at one of our schools now. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, because that's a conversation we need to be having with the city, and I just wanted to point that out.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate your time.
If I can just add that all of our schools are gun-free zones, alcohol-free, and drug-free. So we do want to be restorative with our children, when they're using drugs or alcohol, if they do. But at the same time, I think it's about educating everyone in our community that our schools are safe spaces and that there are laws that prohibit folks from coming on school campuses with guns, drugs, or alcohol.
Certainly, we have to work more with that. Thank you. Our next question is number 20C, Board Member McCutcheon. The Academy School 131 at 86 emergency general construction work.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. All right, so I wanted to start out by repeating something that the superintendent stated earlier today, and I think it's going to open up to the conversations that I'm hoping to have. And I do have several questions, potentially some comments. We're going to kind of see where this goes ultimately. But what she had stated is that, you know, we provide equitable opportunities for all students, regardless of what school they go to. And so I wanted to start with that because that is the space in which I'm sitting. So the Academy School does have 95% minority students in the school, and 20% of them are homeless, and they've been identified as that. And I want to just sit in that for a moment as we move into this space, because there's just, I think, a lot of emotion around it. But we know that that building has been under construction. It's been under construction for a long time. Well, it feels like a long time. Anyways, and I appreciate all of the answers to the litany of questions that I have already offered, and that is all wonderful, but I have more. And ultimately, I guess we'll start with, do we actually have an estimated completion date? Because school starts in 3 weeks, and I'm incredibly concerned with the state of the building.
So when we get the board approval for the change order, we will direct Montante and Okino to start working on the exterior work. So the exterior work, it will take into September, possibly to the end of September for it to be completed. We ceased all work on June 30th. The parking lot was dug up, but because the prior funding source had to be resubmitted and because the change order, we could not do a notice to proceed, which we had done with this emergency project. We could not have a work authorization, and the exterior work was going to be under ARP ESSER money, but we could not, it's prohibited for that expenditure. So there was a significant delay. Also for the parking lot, we had to wait for city permitting. It has to be completely green code compliant. So we didn't get the permits till the second week of July, even to proceed. So the exterior work, we will give the green light. We've talked to the contractor for the past week. They have all the supplies ready to go. And, but we cannot guarantee the exterior work will be done by the beginning of school. The interior work, we're working with the electrician. Some of the change order for the CIR is for work in the COS lab that was not in the original scope of work. Some things that have been added to the scope of work because the scope of work was developed in July of 2022 based on a very quick assessment. We're not working with design drawings. We're not working with specifications. We're working with on-site inspections and just kind of moving forward. So we did have to add some things. The COS lab was not included in the original. The gym originally was not going to be abated. It was just going to be a rubberized coating and a workout facility. So what was originally in the scope of work was not what we wound up doing. What we wound up doing was a full abatement of the floor in the gym, a jackhammering, a leveling, and then laying a rubberized floor. So that was more expensive to do than what was originally planned. That will be done, that gym will be done by the beginning of school. The interior work will be, we have a punch list we're working on, we're meeting with them. The interior work will be wrapped up by the beginning of school. Exterior will not.
Okay, so in this new bid for additional emergency monies coming through, specifically for Montante, so I'm gonna set electrical aside,
Mhm.
because I do fully see it, understand it, and actually have 0 questions on that. Where I have questions is Montante, right?
Mhm.
And exactly what it is that they've done from that original to finish versus what is still outstanding inside the building, let alone outside of the building. And quite frankly, at this point, how much we've actually given them, what we've paid for, under the assumption that it is complete, that may in fact not be complete.
We have, for the original 1.5 million that was in the scope of work, was in the original contract, that was paid out by June 30th. That did not include the exterior work. It did not include many items that were added to the scope of work that are in this change order. So one of the items that we didn't include that we had to put in an allowance was creation of a whole new bathroom that didn't exist before. We had to put some abatement for a fitness room that was newly added in July. So those things are not in the original scope of work. There are 3 items remaining on the punch list from what was closed out and paid for. That's to work on some of the roof leaks, to remove the backboards in the gym, and there's a door issue that needs to be addressed. But the rest are things that were not under the original scope of work, that were added as we went through. So one thing I've heard is the idea of 6 more rooms. That was never in the original scope of work. 6 more rooms are very expensive. Every room you have to get a new rescue window, which took us 8 months to get these rescue windows. You have to have new fire alert systems. You have to redo the air circulation. So and you have to put a second means of egress besides the rescue window. So it's not just a matter of throwing up some drywall. We had more steam leaks than was anticipated that Montante had to chase down. So we've ended the work they were doing in the interior, but this change order covers additional work we saw. Originally, there was $3 million in the emergency authorization for interior work, $1 million for exterior work. Currently, we are at about $2.5 million expended with the 1.5 for Montante, the money for Stoll, some money for Labella, some money for Muirhead to get the boilers up and running, and to get the univentilators up and running.
So this $500,000 being asked for Montante, and I hate to belabor the point, but having been to the school, a couple days ago and actually seeing the state of it, the concern that I had back in May when we talked is even more intensified at this moment because it's actually worse than what was already bad, right, in May. And so I guess I need to know, because there's a lot of things, even in the questions and the answers that I received, things that are clearly not done yet. So I'm wondering if they are already paid for and we're waiting on them to be done, or if they are in fact part of this new 500, or is this new 500,000 in addition to the 1.5? Maybe that's a better question. So ultimately, Montante's total amount will be $2 million paid to them through this process. And what I guess I'm not seeing the results, right? I mean, it's terrible, the state at this moment, and I am concerned for the students coming on. And I hear you, there was extra abatement done with the fitness center. I actually don't see that listed on anything, but I know that that's happening right now because I saw it. So I have questions about that, right? Like there's just endless questions, and maybe this isn't the space for it right now, but I have a lot of discomfort around approving an additional $500,000 to a company who has not finished the work in the first place, and we had students in that space who moved 3 times over the course of the school year. So when we really talk about, right, again, equity at every school we go to, and we're not ready for September. And I don't feel comfortable pushing something forward, what feels rushed, even though I justify finishing the project has to get finished, so I can't argue that, right? But what I saw, the reality of it, and the space that these kids are going to enter back into. And I don't know that I'm fully following, or have I seen all of these things finished. And so I guess I leave that as a comment.
I think one thing, this was not a school reconstruction project. This was not a capital project. This was an emergency project under an emergency authorization that allowed for a fast track of everything. But to do a project like this would usually take 5 years of design, drawing, state approval, and then construction. This is a building that has not been substantially touched since 1972 was the last real work invested in it. So it had significant issues. Are we pleased with where it's at now? No, I am not. But is this a reasonable path forward in an emergency project that never, even when it's sealed up and done, will look like a reconstructed school? That's the next thing we have to do. Begin the process of a capital project that we can now be reimbursed by the state because we have students assigned there. We can do the process of designing, sending it to the state, having architectural drawings, doing an RFP, securing a contractor, and do that process right. We couldn't do that, one, because it was a building with no students assigned to it, two, because it was an emergency project. So some of it is the nature of an emergency project, and these kids deserved better than an emergency project. But that's all they've ever gotten. School 40 was an abandoned building. School 4 was an abandoned building. Tri-Main was an old call center that had been converted, going back to School 4, now going to School 86. I'm not pleased where it's at now. I do not feel that the contracted work was done irresponsibly. We are confident in the work that was done and what will be done to close it out. I wish we were on a better timeline, but that is where we're at. This is not frivolous work to add to it. We originally thought this project would take $4 million. And we're barely, with this, gonna hit $3 million. So it is, in the world of construction, this is still a shoestring budget.
I want to say you made me feel better. You did not.
I want to say that was my intent, but I'm not going to make you feel some way I do not feel. I do not feel better about this, nor does anyone involved.
So the additional $500,000 is for what?
The additional $500,000 is to finish up some interior work and to finish all the exterior work, the parking lot, the exterior basketball court, athletics pad now, the remediation of the site, lighting exterior and lighting in the parking lot is a huge chunk of it, and then some additional work on the COS lab, on the gym, and in taking care of some structural issues that weren't anticipated. The roof's still going to leak, though, no matter how much they patch it, because it's an old roof that needs to be replaced. And they'll do another round of patching, but we'll see leaks in December.
Okay, so to reiterate and recap, and then I'll stop talking because I don't know exactly where to take this from here. Again, having walked into the school and saw it. We have paid them.
For the original contract.
Which included
yes.
items that you just shared with me that are part of the $500,000. They were in the original contract because unfortunately this has taken up way too much of my time. And I went down a rabbit hole of going backwards before I was here to look at everything, to see it, right? To understand exactly what did we approve, what were they supposed to do, what was this timeline, this project? Because I didn't have that information, I didn't know. And so that's, I think, a big part of what I'm struggling with is that was part of the original scope. in that original, right, budget or that scope of work that they had offered, right? Some of these external things are listed there. They aren't new. And so again, I'm not against an emergency going through, and I know how construction projects go, and that often we have this initial amount, and you don't know what you're going to find in a building. So things change. CIR, I didn't question that, and I could make sense of exactly what that was. This is another $500,000. And I don't know that I had the supporting materials to help me understand, especially after seeing the building, how we were off that much, number one. And number two, right, what exactly did you finish from the original scope before we're approving anything more, right? And so to hear that we can't go forward and that June 30 work stopped and we spent an entire summer where there were no students there with no work happening, and we're just now getting to a point of work potentially being able to happen if and only if the folks sitting up here on this stage today, right now, vote on this, right? Work can start again. That's a lot. When again, I don't understand exactly what's been going on, because the building it's not in good shape at this moment.
I think, and I appreciate that, but the massive amount of work that needed to go into, even to get it to this point. We had rooms that had no heat and had to be sealed off during the winter. We had every single door need to be replaced, and not only replacing the door, but entire frame, the entire cement. We had to abate massively. We had to do a new fire panel, a new PA system. There was a massive amount of work. We had to create bathrooms that didn't exist before. So there was a massive.
By no means arguing those things.
Yes.
And I'm aware of it. And like I said, I've been there multiple times. The concern I have is humans are going to be in that building. They're going to be in the building in a couple weeks. And what I saw is not okay. That's the concern, right? And I don't know that it could be okay in 3 weeks. And again, when we're talking about equitable opportunities, no matter what school you go to, and the experience, and knowing what I know about the kids that are going to occupy that building, I'm even more frustrated at a message we're going to send. And when we look at suspension rates, and you look at all the things we've been talking about, the code of conduct, all of this, right? And you look at how everything impacts another, we're sending messages. And that's my concern, right? And again, the weight of the fact that today, in August, if we don't vote to approve this emergency right now, work is not going to move in that school is concerning. And I still feel like I have questions, and I have concerns, and I am struggling to understand why an entire summer has gone, right? And that we're not pre-planning for some of these things, or we're not pushing, right? And I don't know what's been done, right? I just know what I've seen. And what I've seen is concerning, and as I continue to understand, or maybe a lack of understanding, I don't know, but it just doesn't sit right in this moment.
So I just have one question, because I was over there with Board Member McKetchin. Why did they dig up the playing field that the kids play on? Why did they put a big hole back up in there and didn't fill it back up? We don't know what happened to the dirt. All we know is that the area where they used to run and play is now full of weeds, and there's a big hole back there, and they can't run back there and play. What's the reason for taking the dirt and disappearing with it?
So they were told that's where the basketball court would go. And then once they dug it up, they were told the basketball court won't go there. And then they were told, don't build a basketball court. So they had already started, they had already dug it up to put the basketball court there.
No, the original plan from what we were told yesterday, or the other day when we were there, is the basketball court was gonna be near the school. And that was always the plan, where the asphalt is. And so I don't know, I mean, there's been a lot of things that have been done, and everybody is accepting it, but even with the gym, okay, the gym floor is supposed to be vertical, and it's not, okay? It's horizontal, okay? So it's like over and over, and I feel her frustration because we talked to a electrician who said that he put his request in before the end of the school year. It was $49,000 to do the electrical work. Okay, somehow or another, all the money in this district, somebody couldn't find $49,000 until additional funds was found to make sure that that project moved forward. It astonishes me. That's a no-brainer. There's a no excuse for that. It was only $50,000 to get all the electricity dropped and finish the project. And still, we sit here today and it hasn't been done. And that's what the frustration is, because when it comes to this group of children, okay, it's really needed. And I appreciate her concern. And after seeing the building, I was a little upset myself. And the fact that, where's the dirt? Do you understand what I'm saying? Where is the dirt? Just fill the area so the kids can have an area where they can run. And if they don't have a basketball court, they can play soccer or something, but at least give them back the dirt. That's as simple. It's crazy. When you're over there, it's really sad. I encourage board members to go over and see it, because to ask for another $500,000. Now, my second question is this. How many other contracts does this contractor have, and where are they? What is their status? Are they on hold also? And I'm not trying to call the contractor out, I'm not saying their name, but how many other projects are they involved in? Because at the time when I questioned whether we should be giving this person another contract, we were assured that they were doing a great job over at 131, and that we were confident that they would continue. And now we're seeing, and that's my question, how many other properties are they under emergency provisions are they given, and what's the status of those contracts?
So Montante does not have another emergency contract.
Do you have any other?
Well, Montante Solar, which is another division, has contract for our solar work. But as far as Montante itself, there are no current contracts with Montante.
Okay, thank you. And so while you're here, because I don't want you to leave, I have a question at the end of this proposal, which asks a simple question. Where are our community benefit agreements with these agencies, with these organizations? How is it that they can come into a poor school district, make billions of dollars, and not provide something back in return? Not that it's a requirement, but where's the good faith in that? Do you see what I'm saying? And that's, you don't have to answer, I'm not asking you, but that's a question for our CFO, okay, and our attorney, our superintendent, and everyone to find out why we are spending millions and millions of dollars with these organizations and we don't have anything back as a school district. And I don't want you to answer, I'm just making the point, okay? Because I'm going to ask that every month moving forward. I'm letting you know, I'm going to ask it. Because I know how the game plays, how it works, okay? And just so you know, I've talked to Evolve. Evolve is ready to do something for us. I've talked to YZ. They're ready to provide something for us. Okay? After all, it's a tax write-off. Okay? It's not a freebie. It's a tax write-off. So I just want you to know that, you know, I'm trying to move in that direction. And I thank you for your work, David. And the information you sent out the other day is null and void. It doesn't exist. October 31st, it does not exist. That day will not happen. Your retirement day? He's not laughing. David, I think there was a typo on the memo that went out. That's what I'm talking about. I don't think that day exists.
So that's certainly not what I expected. I do want to state, and just to, I don't want to belabor the point, This was an emergency authorization by the superintendent last summer to pick a building and lift it up from nothing. And we did not anticipate stopping work on June 30th. We did not anticipate some of the issues with funding. We did not anticipate some of the challenges we saw. When I was there on June 30th and when I've been there since, my reaction is the same. It's hard because Jamie's not very tall, so it's hard to duck a punch from her. So, and I haven't had to yet, but I deeply regret that we've disappointed those students and that professional community. This is our best path forward.
Thank you. Mr. Hurd, and this will be the final question on this.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hills. I know it's been difficult, especially since the loss of many staff members and trying to correlate everything that's going on in the district and all the great creative projects that we have going on. So hold your head high for one thing on that. Secondly, just want to ask you, do you think that the $500,000 that's being asked for is going to be enough to complete this job and everything that the superintendent and the district asked for?
To complete the existing scope of work, we are still going to have a building that it was an emergency project at, and we immediately need to start looking at a state reimbursable capital improvement project at that building, because it will still be one of our highest need buildings even when the work is done. So this was a sinking ship. It's ordered to get it above water. In order to get where we want to be, we will have to take the next step, and that means a state reimbursable capital project that we submit through the normal process, normal budgeting, normal state approvals, working with the state facilities office. They are ready for that next step once we get this emergency chapter closed.
I just don't want to be a shock to this board when we took a visit over to the location or the students come in and that everything is not completed, you know, according to what our standards is going to be. And thank you for that. And if you can somehow work with the superintendent about giving the board an update on the progress of this completion and what it will take to complete the master plan of the location, then that would be very, very grateful, you know, for us as the board, you know, as we plan on moving forward. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I don't want to step away too quickly.
Now, if I can just add, you know, I think Chief Hills this year, I don't even, have you been in the position for a full year?
August 28th.
August 28th. And I mean, the things that he has been able to do, I know it's easy to look at something and identify what's not done. And we do want the best. We want the best in all of our schools for all of our children. And so last year, you know, the children were at school 18 and we had to move them out. So we put them at school 4. And, you know, people, you know, we went over to school 4 and we saw like that was not good. That was not a good situation. So, you know, we looked at the data and we met with different stakeholders, including the Buffalo Chief Young and people, and, you know, where should we look at where our students would be safe? Because safety does have to come first. And they shared School 86. And so, you know, we went over to 86 and there was an adult education program there, but it wasn't, as Chief Hills has shared, you know, it wasn't really a building that was conducive at all for a K-12 situation. And, you know, we met weekly because I was on pins and needles and, you know, he worked tirelessly to get the things over there in a really short, I mean, if we think about our personal lives and contracting, just to get a bathroom done at your own home or a kitchen, it takes time to get the resources, to get the contractors, to get everything moving the way you want it to move, and oftentimes timelines do get pushed out. And so now we're redoing an entire building. This is just one building. We've moved several students to different buildings. And I'm just saying, you know, we want everything. He knows that I was disappointed when I found out that September things wouldn't be the way that we wanted them to be done. He knows that. So I feel the frustration. I do. I feel the concern. We're going to continue to move things as much as we can, as fast as we can for School 8, for, School 86. But I just want us to know that, Chief Hills is doing a remarkable job with a really difficult litany of tasks that have been put before him. So I just want to say that.
Thank you.
Okay. Chief Hills, one more.
One more. I just want to say that you have to understand, Madam Superintendent, that we appreciate the work that's being done. However, these are our most neediest students. And we can't say our most neediest students since January do not have what they want. And primarily one of the holdups was $50,000. Okay, what did you want? Somebody to write a check for you? And you could have paid them back? Was that the problem? Okay, ask. But don't hold our children back like that. So Mr. Hurd has question 22A, Enterprise.
Okay, Mr. Hills, I'm gonna try to make this quick and happy, okay?
Okay.
I read over this lease agreement for Enterprise rentals for 29 vehicles, which were described as monthly leases of $17,000 and estimated grand totals and invoices for Enterprise. And these are all fleet vehicles, so you're moving material with these vehicles. I just did some math, and I was just looking at the price that we're paying per vehicle, per lease, $17,000, the monthly lease for the average cost of 29 vehicles times 12 months. That's $302,000, just over. And I went to that website with Enterprise, and I looked at the price it will cost to purchase these vehicles, and to purchase the vehicles would be about $30,000. And for each of the same vehicles, I believe that if we were in the shorter vehicles and maintenance, we can add 2 months paid to that, which would be $16,000, $17,000, $17,000, and we can get 30 of these vehicles for the year for $90,000, and we can own them. And with that price, I believe that we can also insure them and do maintenance on them with the $90,000. But I just don't understand why this district we're paying $203,000 for these vehicles, for 29 vehicles that we're leasing, which we can really save, like it looks like it's about 70% of the money if we purchase the vehicles.
So we have right now a hybrid fleet of about 74 vehicles in total. Some we lease, some we own. There are pros and cons for both. I think there's no one involved in the fleet management, our head mechanic, no one that feels we should be leasing as much as we are. Owning the vehicle has a lot of ups, but it is much more complicated. It leaves us with more year-to-year responsibility, but we need to transition to more owned vehicles, so that's something we're looking at this year, doing a real good assessment of what we need to purchase. We do have about 7 vehicles we need to retire that are owned vehicles, so and getting a good assessment of that, because it's everything from our snow removal equipment, our box trucks, our service vans, our security officer vehicles, so all of those, our dump trucks, our everything. So some of the vehicles, it was in the short term easier to lease, but we're looking at that model, and Jim and I can have a continued conversation, but we have to get our fleet up to size for the start of school.
Okay, I have a printout here. I'll give it to you. The average price of the vehicles is the exact same vehicles that we're leasing. We can purchase the exact same vehicles that's up to date for average of $30,000. And we're paying $16,000 a month lease right now, so it's not really cost effective and we could purchase these vehicles and put a Buffalo Public Schools label on the side of them, our emblem, and they'll be our vehicles. But I understand the maintenance and insurance costs of it, but I really think that we can save about 75% of our expenditures if we were to purchase them.
Yeah, we would have to make the commitment to transitioning a model to a full-owned fleet, which has challenges. So but I think it's definitely something that we've been talking about and is worth looking at.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So let's just note that that's the third year in a row that this conversation has been had. Let the record reflect. Thank you. The only other thing, and I don't know who, I'm sorry. I have 23 A and B, Dr. Reynolds, from Mr. Hurd, weight fitness room purchase for 131 and East High School.
No, Dr. Reynolds, you don't have to come up. Thank you. No, I was just saying thank you. I know that we worked with Mike House and Dr. Reynolds about getting these two schools outfitted with new weight and fitness equipment, and that some of the equipment that was in there was a hazard to the children. So thank you for bringing this up so that we can hopefully pass this tonight to get that equipment for our children, especially in their strength and conditioning for sports and athletics. Thank you again.
Thank you. I have a final comment. One of the things that I've noticed in this package over the past year is that there are very few equal opportunity employment rubrics. I think there was only 2 in this package this year. And my concern is that as we talk about trying to increase diversity purchasing in our district, that this item does not escape us. And so that's my reason for bringing it up. I think that if I remember right, when the board passed the resolution on this, we were supposed to make sure that these were included in. So it has not been the case. So I just wanted to point that out to all parties involved, that the board is watching that. Mr. Kuzma, can you poll the board in regards to the consent agenda? Thank you.
Yes, Board President. On the consent agenda, how do you vote, Dr. Evans-Brown? Mr. Hurd?
No exceptions.
Board Member McEachen? Other than that? Ms. McCosey? Dr. Rivera? Mrs. Shuda? Mr. Scott?
No exceptions.
Ms. Woods?
No exceptions.
President Belton Cottman?
Exception 20C, only, and no exceptions other than that. Thank you.
Thank you. Consent agenda passes.
Thank you. So, I'm going to take the, let's go do our resolutions at this point. There are several resolutions that have been proposed. School bus, clear air, 2. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hurd.
I will go on to read the resolutions so that everybody can have a clear understanding what the resolution for clean air school buses is. Whereas children's, families, employees, and wildlife in the state of New York, county of Erie, and the city of Buffalo suffer from a high rate of respiratory disease and respiratory infection and other airways anomalies. Whereas diesel fuel buses are prevalent in Western New York, which has been proven to contribute to the area's high rate of asthma, bronchopneumonia, dysplasma, chronic coughs, citric fibrosis, pulmonary hypertensions, current pneumonia, cancers, and other type of lung diseases and infections. Whereas diesel power buses operate in all 17 counties in western New York, which include Allegheny, Cattaraugus, Chautauqua, Erie, Genesee, Livingston, Monroe, Niagara, Ontario, Orleans, Schuyler, Seneca, Steuben, Wayne, Wyoming, and Yates, with a land area of 11,746 square miles, in which tens of thousands of diesel-powered buses have over 10 to 20 years of life left in them. Whereas, according to Erie County Community Health Needs Assessment 2018, the leading cause of death report states that, as a whole, Erie County has statistically a significant higher rate of heart disease, cancer, chronic lower respiratory disease, and other neighboring states of the state of Pennsylvania. Whereas extended exposure to diesel fuels exhaust regularly includes long-term medical treatment, which often includes steroid dependencies and lifestyle modification. Whereas a widely cited, the Natural Resource Defense Council study states that the air on a diesel bus is more toxic than the air outside of the bus. Whereas, according to New York State Guide of Asthma Management in Schools, studies have found that students who have asthma miss more school days compared to students who do not have asthma. Bronchial, asthmatic-related school absences happen for many reasons, such as symptoms, doctor visits, hospitalizations, exposure to environmental asthma triggers, and sleep loss due to nighttime asthma separations. Whereas the prevalence of asthma is higher among Black children, effectively nearly 1 in every 7 in urban areas, compared to 1 in every 18 in white children in rural areas. Whereas by adopting clean air initiatives, greenhouse gas emissions, which contribute to climate change, the district will help avoid critical health risks to our community, especially for children whose lungs are still developing. Whereas by adopting clean air health initiatives and proposing clean air vehicle initiatives, the Buffalo Public School District, First Student Company, and the Buffalo School Board will be accountable in helping the Western New York community accelerate in reaching their healthy initiative goals for transportation. Whereas through these efforts are affordable, scalable, and achievable through President Joe Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law 2021, which authorized the Environmental Protection Agency to offer rebates to replace existing school buses with clean, zero-emission models to reduce harmful emissions from older buses and dirtier buses. Therefore, that it be resolved that the Buffalo Public Schools, along with the First Student Bus Company, will work to eliminate the district dependency on fossil fuels burning vehicles by jointly working together to promote clean air, EV electronic transportation initiatives within the city of Buffalo. Therefore, let it be resolved that the Buffalo Public Schools support the First Student Company and our efforts in working with the Environmental Protection Agency in applying and for receiving the 2023 Clean School Bus Grant, the EPA or OTAQ 23-06. Therefore, let it be resolved upon approval of the EPA's 2020 Clean School Bus Grant, the First Student Bus Company will be granted 20 EV buses, which will operate within the Buffalo Public School District in our efforts to work towards 100% EV clean school buses. Therefore, let it be resolved that the Buffalo Public School District, First Student Bus Company, the Buffalo Public Schools, the Buffalo School Board, the Sierra Club, Clean Air, government agencies, and other community partners will continue to meet in bipartisan efforts to explore future options to achieve 100% reliance on EV clean school buses in the city of Buffalo. This resolution was written with the help of, first of all, David Hills and Will Caressi, who came together. We had a multitude of meetings along with other organizations, which includes the Sierra Club, the Greater Washington Region Clean Cities. We also work with, out of Washington, former Senator Antoine Thompson, and a slew of others individuals, including Clean Air here in Buffalo, and the Clean Fuel organizations. We also met with first student executive director on behalf of this. Give me 1 second, please. And with this resolution, we will be able to have first students submit an application to the Environmental Protection Agency for the 2023 Clean School Bus Air Grant Program. I spoke with the superintendent. We met and talked in depth about the progress of this, and this application will go in on August 22nd to reach the application deadline so that we can receive 20 EV buses here in the city of Buffalo. This is the start of a plan to have 100% EV buses here in the city of Buffalo for our children. Our children has been suffering greatly, and part of this resolution, if you listen to it, it said that the air on the bus, the air on our school buses is more contaminated than standing behind by the exhaust. So our children are breathing, and workers are breathing in these contaminants every single day. And if you notice around the city of Buffalo, everybody has a dry cough, and that's in a lot of inner cities here in this country because of the diesel fumes and exhaust that we breathe in on a daily basis. So this resolution will be submitted, like I said, along with to the Environmental Protection Agency, along with for the first student, so that we can receive our first 20 buses that we be granted upon the completion and submission of this application. So thank you so much, and I don't know if David Hills or Will Caress would like to have any input into this.
So, under the Inflation Reduction Act, there was a set aside of funding for the EPA to support electrification. This grant is being applied for by first student, but we want to have the support for them to have the strongest application possible. It would support a full electrification of the federal terminal, so it would not only be the buses themselves, but also support having the infrastructure created. So the federal terminal, which is actually twice as big as our next biggest terminal, so it would be a large portion of our buses to be electrified under the Inflation Reduction Act. So that we have a very strong application that first students putting in for the electrification.
Thank you. Yes, Jennifer.
With First Student being such a large company and just across the country, apparently, they apply for this money. These buses come to Buffalo. Would they be using the fact that the second largest district in New York State supported this? Would they continue to support us along this, or are they going to just use this to broaden services across? Like, is this specific just to Buffalo, or are they using this to also expand and work outside of the Buffalo area? Like, what is the guarantee that Buffalo will always be recipients to whatever funding they receive behind this?
So this is a one-time funding injection to the Buffalo fleet, based on Buffalo. The money is set aside 10 regions in the country, and we're in one of the regions, and we probably have the strongest application out of the whole region. So we're in a very good position, but it's for our fleet in Buffalo.
Also like to add that first student president, Brian Fitzgerald, he's very excited that the Buffalo Public Schools is actually pushing this initiative to work with them for 100%, the possibilities of having 100% EV buses here in the city of Buffalo. He's, what that does is actually give us new buses here in Buffalo, and also it brings up the electrification, our reliance on fossil fuels. You know, it takes that dependency away, and it actually gives us a boost here in Western New York because we have our power generation capabilities here, you know, due to our local plants, you know, that generate electricity, which we can get at an easier base. But he wants to have this worldwide, so, you know, all the places in Canada and the United States where they operate, but Buffalo is like the pilot program. And by redoing this, we're actually making a great input, because in our meetings with the Erie County Association of School Boards, the school board members there also entitled, want to make more, a larger impact with EV transportation within their district also. So we actually be leading Western New York and Erie County in the EV buses and out of any schools. A couple other buildings, I believe in Lakeshore, said they had an EV bus, and I believe out in Springfield had an EV bus also. So we will be moving forward, far beyond any other district in this area and implementing, healthy choices in transportation.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion to accept this resolution? Is there any other, may I have a second? So move. There is, under discussion, is there anyone else who wants to co-sponsor this? Okay, without further ado, let's take a vote. Yes, please.
On the resolution regarding electric school buses, how do you vote, Dr. Evans-Brown? Yes. Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Ms. McEachen? Yes. Ms. McCosey? Yes. Dr. Rivera? Yes. Ms. Shuda? Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Woods?
Yes.
And President Belton Cobman?
Yes.
Resolution passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next resolution is Safe School Zones, introduced by Larry Scott, Vice President of Student Achievement, Member at Large, Terrence Hurd. Mr. Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Scott. About a year and a half ago, we passed a resolution that was written by Board Member Lawrence Scott, and we talked about safe school zones, and but it also talked about speed cameras, which was once instituted here in the city of Buffalo, and we needed to make some changes and modifications so that we can update this resolution. So I'm going to read this resolution off and give a quick basis of what it stands for and how we can implement it. Whereas to the safety of our children is paramount concern to the Buffalo School Board Education Administration, teachers, family, and stakeholders. Whereas the current design and conditions of the streets, sidewalks, and lacks of bicycle facilities in many of our school zones, playgrounds, surrounding community places, our children is at risk. Whereas from 2008 to 2018, it was reported that 44 people were killed by vehicles while walking or bicycling in the city of Buffalo. Whereas from a report produced by the University of Buffalo from 2010 to 2011, children under the age of 18 were disproportionately struck by automobile operators, having been involved in over 1/4, 26.5% of all pedestrian and bicycle crashes with motor vehicles, while accounting for 22.5% of the total population. Whereas neighborhoods across the city of Buffalo face systematic disenfranchisement, while communities on the east side and west side are home to 17,000, that's 49% of school-age children, and west side communities are home to 10,600, which is about 45% of school-age children that live in our household, which incomes less than poverty level wages, places them systematically greater risk of being hit by a car while walking or riding a bicycle. Whereas recent automobile accidents around Buffalo public schools include Emerson High School Hospitality Public School 302, which had 20 crashes. Academy School, 18A Public School number 131 had 19 crashes, and the Pantanja School of Excellence, PS 18 has reported 17 crashes. International Prep School, Public School number 198 reported 16 crashes, and Hutchinson Central Technical High School, Public School number 304 had a report of 15 crashes. Whereas the Buffalo Public Schools are significantly investing into the playground areas and adjacent to its schools locations to help develop our children's physical benefits, social benefits, and cognitive benefits, and their emotional benefits. Whereas the City of Buffalo and its Department of Public Works have been working on grading sidewalks, replacing sidewalks, installing new curbs, and upgrading corners for biking and accessibility. Whereas it is especially difficult for vehicle operators to identify school crossings and playgrounds in the City of Buffalo. Whereas funding provided by the City of Buffalo exists to improve infrastructure, local neighborhoods and parks from sources such as federal and state programs and grants for local government capital improvement and funding budgets. Therefore, let it be resolved that the Buffalo Board of Education requests that the Buffalo Common Council bring attention to unsafe schools, playgrounds, and bike routes used by our students for study and play. Therefore, let it be resolved that the Buffalo Board of Education requests that the Buffalo Common Council take decisive action to ensure better and safety measures for our children by ensuring that the City of Buffalo paints mainly highly visible pedestrian crosswalks at every elementary school, high school, and playground in the City of Buffalo. Therefore, let it be resolved that the Buffalo Board of Education requests that the Buffalo Common Council take decisive action to ensure better safety measures for our children by ensuring that the City of Buffalo install highly visible pedestrian crosswalk signage at every elementary school, high school, and playground in the City of Buffalo. This conversation was brought up between myself and Brian Bowman. He's the Lovejoy Council District councilman here in the City of Buffalo. And he said that they do have funds that's available that was granted by the state and also through government agencies that will support the crosswalk signage and also the crosswalk spraying so that it can be a widely effort across the City of Buffalo. He especially referenced a school that's in his district was public school number 69 that is on a highway which kids cross every day, and their lives are in jeopardy because they do have a crossing guard, but they have different areas where children are crossing, to go across that busy highway on Clinton Street. So, and then we also looked at other buildings that's here in the City of Buffalo, and he said that he will reach out to the Common Council and look upon whatever it takes to retrieve that money so that we can get the signage in here done with the Buffalo schools.
Thank you. You have anything to say, Mr. Scott? Thank you. Without further ado, may I have a motion to accept? Terry, second. Jennifer. Any additional conversation? Does anyone else want to co-sponsor this? Terry Shuda would like to be added. Jennifer McCousey and Dr. Kathy Evans Brown.
So I would like to say that a lot of parts of this resolution was already passed by the board, and that it was, like I said, it was something previous that was written by Lawrence Scott, but we also just had to add some paragraphs in here to make it adaptable so that we can have something that the Common Council can use to forward with the funding that they have to make this possible for us.
Right, we understood that. Okay. Anything else? May we have a vote? Thank you, Mr. Kuzman.
On the Safe School Zones resolution, how do you vote, Dr. Evans Brown? Mr. Hurt?
Yes.
Ms. McEachen? Yes. Ms. McCosey? Dr. Rivera? Yes. Mrs. Shuda? Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Woods? Yes. And President Belden-Cotman?
Yes.
Resolution unanimously passes.
Thank you. Our third and final resolution, Dignity for All Students Act, introduced by Larry Scott, Vice President of Student Achievement, co-sponsored by Cindy McEachen, North District Member Honorable Jennifer McCousey, West District Honorable Ann Revere, Member at Large Honorable Terry Shuda, Park District Manager Member Honorable Paulette Woods, Central District. I'd like to add my name, Honorable Sharon Belton-Cotman, Ferry District. Please, Mr. Scott, please share this. Oh, and Dr. Kevin, Dr. Evans Brown would like hers added as well.
Then thank you all board members for signing on as co-sponsors. As you mentioned, President Bellencommon, this is about DASA, incidents of harassment, discrimination, and/or cyberbullying, which came into effect in New York State in 2012. And it requires districts to report on incidents of harassment, bullying, and discrimination, provide training to staff on such, provide instruction to students to prevent these incidents, include prohibition of these incidents in the code of conduct, and then identify Dignity Act coordinators for each school. On August 9th, this past August 9th, Attorney General James and Commissioner Rosa issued guidance on DEI, and it included in that guidance a reminder of our obligation to uphold DASA. And in a recent NISPA publication on board, citing data from the State Ed Department, it indicated that excluding the city of New York City and cyberbullying, that incidents of harassment and bullying had markedly declined since 2012-2013. So therefore, be it resolved, the Buffalo Board of Education requests that the Buffalo City School District provide the board with the following in a work session by October of 2023: the district process for training staff on DASA, the reporting and resolution process of harassment, bullying incidents under DASA within each school and with appropriate district departments and staff, and the rate of harassment, bullying incidents under DASA district-wide and aggregated by school over the past 5 school years. And further be it resolved, the Buffalo Board requests that the district establish a process to publicly identify the Dignity Act coordinator for the district and for each school to students, staff, and persons in parental relation.
Thank you. May I have a motion to accept this resolution? I see Board Member Woods as well as Cindy McCutcheon, Board Member McCutcheon. Are there any other discussions about this? If not, may I have a vote, please?
On the pending resolution regarding DASA, how do you vote, Dr. Evans Brown? Mr. Hurd?
And please add my name to the resolution, yes.
Ms. McEachen? Ms. McCosey? Dr. Rivera? Ms. Shuda? Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Woods? Board President Cobbin.
Yes.
Resolution unanimously passes.
Thank you. If the board is in agreement, due to the lateness of the hour, that we would not do our committee reports this month, may I have a motion to waive committee reports? Jennifer and it's late. Dr. Evans Brown, and second by Cindy McCutcheon, unless somebody wants to share something. I have a couple of things, housekeeping. We are about to start Monday our training with the Council of Great City Schools. As part of the training, the Council of Great City Schools requires that a subcommittee exists for the sole purpose of working with them as board president under Section 2000, Code 2210 for the record. I have taken the privilege of speaking to several board members, and they have agreed to work on that committee. We have chair will be Cindy McCutcheon. We have the 2 other members, which will be Terry Shuda and Dr. Kathy Evans Brown. Nate, do I need a motion for that? It's automatically accepted, okay? I guess the question the board, or we should ask is, which committee would that fall under? Because it's also, I think maybe executive affairs might be most proper for that, okay? Although it is, and so we will put that under that committee chair. And that information will be shared with AJ Capill tomorrow or tonight probably, and he will be contacting you before Monday. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how that works out. May I have a motion authorizing the Office of Legal Counsel to commence a declaratory judgment action against Supplemental Health Corporation, SHC, and its insurance companies, seeking a judicial finding that SHC and its insurance company must defend and indemnify the Buffalo City School District in the recently filed State Supreme Court matter with index number 806-309-2023. Motion, please. So moved by Scott, second by Shuta. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Thank you. That has passed. Next, may I have a motion authorizing the Office of Legal Counsel to commence a third-party action against the alleged and now convicted individuals and their families that were involved in the McKinley High School violence on February 8th, 2022, seeking proper appropriation of fault indemnifications and contributions to the Buffalo City School District in the recently filed State Supreme Court matter with index number 810-308-2022. May I have a motion? Board Member McCutcheon, second by Board Member McCuzy. I'd like to say that on this particular motion, I would like to see the possibility of the school district looking into seeing if, in addition to that, that the gun manufacturers can also be listed in this particular one. With all that said, may I have a vote? All in favor, please raise your hand. Do we have anyone that disagrees and is opposed? No, thank you. Our final motion tonight, may I have a motion authorizing the district to fully settle case number 102-11649 before the New York State Division of Human Rights in the amount not to exceed $50,000. May I have a motion? Dr. Cassius Evan Brown, second by Board Member McCutcheon. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? No. Mr. Kuzman, does that meet your needs?
That does. Thank you, Board.
Thank you very much. Next, we have, unless someone has anything else to share, we need to do our bereavements, and then we would adjourn this meeting. Okay? Dr. Kathy Evans Brown.
May we stand and recognize those who have been lost since our last meeting. July 12th, Thomasina Regina McDowell, aunt of Dr. Ebony Bullock, Chief Accountability Officer. August 14th, Carolyn Inwood, school clerk at Stanley Mikowski School number 99. Doris Cathy, August 14th, mother of retired assistant principal Natalie White. May we bow in silence. Thank you.
Thank you. Without further ado, may I have a motion to conclude this meeting? Cindy, and second by Jennifer. Thank you, and have a nice evening.